We will pass the great health care plan. We call it the great health care plan, to stop all payments to big insurance companies and give the money. What we want to do is this. We want the insurance companies to be cut out. We want our government not to pay trillions of dollars to insurance companies, to pay that same amount of money directly to the people, directly, and you go out and buy your own health care. And everybody likes it.
President Trump last month talking about his administration's health care plan unveiled in January, but there remained no concrete bill containing President Trump's proposals for Congress to even attempt to pass. There's a plan, more like a concept of a plan, to quote the president. Millions, meanwhile, reportedly have dropped their health care coverage after Congress failed to extend the COVID-era subsidies of the Affordable Care Act. Former Treasury official, Morning Joe economic analyst Steve Rattner joins us now with charts on how all of that is going. Steve, good morning. Always great to see you. Let's start with the premiums, what people are paying now as a result of the action of the administration.
Yeah, Willie. So as you said, just to recall, last fall, the Democrats had shut down the government for the longest period in history to try to preserve these tax credits. They ultimately failed, and now we're going to see the consequences of all that. So premium numbers have come in, and the average premium for someone, these are for people who buy their insurance in the marketplaces that Obamacare set up 58% for the average premium. That's not even shared equally. Different age groups, different income levels will have different impacts. But let's just look at a typical family. $65,000 is the average income of an American worker today. If you're 60 years old, your premium is going to go up by $920 a month. That's $11,040 a year. If you're making $65,000, paying $11,040 a year for health insurance is simply not realistic.
So, Steve, just to remind people, this was kind of the basis of that government shutdown at the end of last year, a fight that Senate Democrats ultimately lost, but it was to expand these tax credits that would have covered a lot of this. So as you move to your second chart, you've got information kind of about this middle-class cliff that a lot of people predicted would come if those tax credits were not extended.
Yeah, exactly. These were tax credits passed during the Biden administration in a COVID environment, and they were set to expire. But they were designed to solve a specific problem. When Obamacare was created, inadvertently or not, there was this cliff where you paid a reasonable percentage of your income in healthcare costs. But then suddenly it went away, and you were paying as much as 25% of your income in costs. This Biden-era provision was designed to eliminate that and essentially provide a smooth transition here from the subsidies so that nobody paid more than 8.5% of their income in health care premiums. So we went from this to up here. So what's the consequence? Well, obviously, as I showed you with the numbers before, healthcare becomes unaffordable for a lot of people, and they start dropping their coverage. And so the estimates at the moment that have recently come in is that this year, somewhere between 17 and 26% of the people who bought their healthcare in the Obama exchanges will drop it. But the people who drop it are also the healthier people, right? I mean, that's logical. And so what happens is that the remaining people in the insurance pools become sicker, have a higher morbidity rate, and that's what this number here is. And when you have a sicker pool of people, that drives the insurance premiums up even more because the insurers are trying to recover the costs of insuring a smaller group of Americans who are not quite as healthy.
And those who drop the coverage still get sick, so they end up in emergency rooms, which are also paid for by the taxpayers as well, which gets to your final chart, number 3. Millions more people are now uninsured. What are the numbers here, specifically around Medicaid?
Right. So Medicaid is separate from what I was talking about. But back in the One Big Beautiful Bill, the Republicans carved back all kinds of Medicaid eligibility definitions. And so the consequence, when you put the two things together, this is the impact of these tax credits that I was just talking about. But when you add the One Big Beautiful Bill impact on it, you can see that the number of people who are insured, which peaked back up here at about almost 50 million people in the exchanges, thanks to Obamacare, went down, 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 all the way down here because of those exchanges that Obamacare set up. Now it's going to jump back up here, up to 37 million uninsured Americans. That means that we have essentially, or we will essentially eliminate half of the people who got insurance through Obamacare will be giving it up. So half of Obamacare, the Republicans have very quietly eviscerated without ever saying the words Obamacare, because that didn't go so well for them in the past. Now, we have some actual data. These are projections, but we have a test case. Georgia has actually already reported its numbers. And you can see here again, the effect of those tax credits was to increase the number of people who got insurance through the marketplaces all the way up to 1,500,000. Now it is down to 950,000. So you've something like 560,000 Georgians have dropped their insurance. And let me just make one other point about Georgia. Georgia's a really important state for the Democrats because John Ossoff, the young Democratic senator, is the only Democratic incumbent running in a state that Trump carried. So Georgia, which in the past was a red state, got a little bit purplish. Now, hopefully, this will help John Ossoff in a tough race in Georgia.
All right, Morning Joe economic analyst Steve Rattner, thank you so much. Hopefully, this information will help anybody in any party fight for health care for Americans and to turn this back the way it was before the one huge, massive, terrible bill. Steve Rattner, thank you so much. So Mika, we're talking right now about Obamacare. You've got that on one side of the equation, but on the other, private health care. Private health care has gotten so outrageously expensive, and we've talked about it time and time again. Yeah, people pay higher premiums than ever before. They're just getting absolutely crushed. And then the very things, the procedures, the tests that the doctors order, that they prescribe, the health insurance companies deny that. Then they get home. There are more hidden costs. You go down the list. Healthcare is unaffordable. Again, it's not just about Obamacare. It's about the private healthcare industry. And then it sounds like what we conservatives used to say about health care in Britain or Canada. You want to get a procedure? Great. Well, you have to wait 6 months or 9 months. And when you say, oh, the American system is so superior to that, that's now what's happening with so many private health care companies. Oh, you want to use your doctor? Okay, well, we've got to figure it out. Okay, we'll approve that for 6 months from now. And then 4 months after that, they, of course, deny it and then just keep you running around and in circles. So health care insurance is a serious crisis, and it's been made so much more serious for working Americans by what the Republicans have done and what they continue to do.
And that's the question, because it's not just health care and the cost of it and the outrageous nature of the cost of it, but also access to it. There are healthcare deserts around the country. There are rural hospitals that have been shut down. There are hospitals that have shut down their maternity wards. So it's paying for it and getting to it that people are struggling with across the country. And Katty K, it all goes down to that word, affordability, which the president was mocking just a few days ago, again, as if it's not happening. And the American people can tell you it's happening on every level, whether it's the grocery store, whether it's health care, whether it's gas prices because of the war in Iran, which, again, the president seems to not be, or at least moving the target on what the truth is with that. And I wonder, it's obvious voters are feeling this. It's obvious voters are feeling this. But Republicans, when are Republicans going to see that they're on the wrong side of this story and that it is a real story, affordability?
And healthcare costs are a huge part of that, which is why you're seeing candidates in Michigan in the Democratic primary, like Abdullah Syed, who's running almost entirely on a universal healthcare platform. You're seeing candidates like Graham Plattner talking about affordability. When Joe talks about the 3 C's, cost, confusion, and corruption, or cost, chaos, and corruption, the costs are the big part of that. Republicans will realize this, I think, when it comes to elections, when people go to the polls. I mean, it's so interesting. Steve's numbers from the state of Georgia. Georgia, kind of a swing state. We know that at the moment. It is up for grabs, Georgia, particularly in the Senate race. Well, when you've had that many people losing their health care coverage, that is the kind of thing that drives people to the polls. That is why you've got Marjorie Taylor Greene from Georgia talking about her own kids' healthcare premiums. I see it with my kids. One of them doesn't have coverage at the moment, and the cost of even trying to get tiny amounts of treatment is impossible. Another is trying to get an MRI. He can't get the insurance company to fund it. The doctor says the MRI needs to do it. The MRI say, no, the doctor needs to clear it. In the end, after about 3 months, we ended up paying for his MRI. That's ridiculous. We could afford to pay for the MRI, and he needed it for a hip operation. But Americans shouldn't be in that position when this is a country that says it has the greatest healthcare system in the world. It's a great healthcare system when it works, but far too often at the moment, it's not working for ordinary people. And I do believe we're going to see healthcare show up in the polls this November.